The gas lamps flickered along the cobblestones of 14th Street, casting long, trembling shadows against the brick tenements. It was November 1910 in New York City, a time when the air always seemed thick with the smell of coal smoke and damp wool, and the noise of the elevated trains rattled the windows of the buildings like a constant metallic storm. Inside a narrow 4-story walk-up, the building settled into its nightly creaks, the sound of hundreds of lives stacked one on top of the other. Arthur Vance lived on the 3rd floor, in a small room that smelled faintly of linseed oil and old tobacco. He was a man who didn't belong to the city, though he had lived there for 10 years. He worked as a night watchman at a warehouse down by the docks, a job that suited his quiet nature and his need to be alone. But if one looked closely at his hands, rough, scarred, and permanently stained with ink and grease, they told a different story. 20 years earlier, those hands had held reins, driven cattle across the swollen rivers of Texas, and tethered horses under the vast, empty stars of the open range. Arthur was a cowboy who had traded the saddle for a city uniform, but he had never lost the stride of a rider. He walked with a bow-legged gait, and his eyes always scanned the horizon, even when that horizon was just the brick wall of the opposite building. He first saw her on a Tuesday evening, when the rain was turning the soot on the sidewalk into black mud. She was struggling with a heavy wicker basket of laundry on the 2nd floor landing, the wood of the banister slick with moisture. She was slight, with hair pinned back tightly, and a dress that had been mended more times than Arthur could count. Her name was Clara, and she worked in the garment district, sewing buttons on coats for 14 hours a day. Arthur didn't speak. He simply stepped out of the shadows of his doorway, took the heavy basket from her grip with a nod, and carried it up the 3 flights to her door. He set it down gently, touched the brim of his cap, and turned back down the hall. Clara had murmured a soft, breathless thank you, her eyes wide with surprise at the sudden, silent strength of the stranger. From that night on, a routine formed between them, a silent rhythm in the chaotic symphony of the city. It was a love built not on words, but on the geometry of their shared existence. Arthur left for his shift at 6 in the evening. Clara returned from hers at 6 in the morning. They passed each other on the steep, narrow staircase of the boarding house, their only meeting place. In the beginning, it was just a nod. Then, it became a pause. Arthur would tip his hat. Clara would offer a small, tired smile that seemed to light up the dim hallway. In the winter, when the steam heat hissed and rattled ineffectively, Arthur would leave the hallway door to his apartment, cracked open, letting the warmth from his stove drift out to the landing where Clara struggled out of her coat. He never mentioned it, and she never asked, but she stopped shivering as she unlocked her door. Arthur felt a deep, aching affection for her, but it was locked away behind a wall of duty and a promise made 1,000 miles away. He had not come to New York for adventure. He had come because of a vow made to a dying man on a dusty trail in Wyoming. That man had been Clara's father, a drifter Arthur had ridden with for a season. When the fever took him, he made Arthur promise one thing: to watch over his daughter, to ensure she never knew the hardship he had known, but to never reveal the burden of that debt. Arthur had found her in the city, living in this tenement, fighting a losing battle against poverty. He had taken the room across the hall. He watched over her, fulfilling his promise in the only way the city allowed, through small, invisible interventions. When the landlord raised the rent, a mysterious envelope with a difference appeared under the office door. When the grocer on the corner tried to shortchange her, Arthur had a quiet, terrifying word with the man that ensured Clara always received the best cuts of meat for the lowest price. She thought the world was occasionally kind. Arthur knew better. He was simply making it so. Clara, for her part, sensed a gravity in Arthur. She saw the way he looked at her, not with the bold, hungry stares of the men on the street corners, but with a protective, weary warmth. She began to wait for the creak of his boots on the stairs. In the mornings, covered in lint and exhausted, the sight of his broad shoulders waiting for her to pass gave her a strange sense of peace. She began to leave small things for him: a knitted scarf left hanging on his doorknob in November, a tin of her leftover stew on the ledge in the hallway. They never spoke of these gifts. To speak would be to break the spell of the stairwell, to acknowledge the fragile connection that kept them both sane in the crushing loneliness of the city. Their love was a series of avoidance strategies, avoiding the eye contact that lasted too long, avoiding the brush of a sleeve that might linger, avoiding the words that would turn them from neighbors into something complicated and dangerous. Spring arrived slowly, turning the slush into grey puddles. The city seemed to wake up, but the routines of the boarding house remained frozen in time. However, the world outside was changing. The factories were hiring more men, and the garment district was contracting. Clara's hours were cut, then cut again. The worry lines in her forehead deepened, carving canyons in her pale skin. One evening, Arthur found her sitting on the top step of the staircase, her head in her hands. The hallway was dim, lit only by a yellow bulb that buzzed like an angry insect. He stopped, his heart hammering against his ribs. He wanted to sit beside her, to take her hand, to tell her that he would carry her burdens. But the promise held him back. He was her guardian, not her suitor. He was the shadow, not the light. "Miss Clara," he said, his voice rough, unused to speaking in the quiet hallway. She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. "Mr. Vance," she whispered, "they let me go. The factory. They're moving south." Arthur gripped the railing. He knew what this meant. Without work, she couldn't stay. She would be evicted. She would have to go to a shelter or leave the city. The promise flashed in his mind. Watch over her. He could offer her money. He could reveal who he was, but he knew her pride. He had watched it grow like a stubborn weed in the concrete. She would not take charity, and she would not believe a fairy tale about a cowboy father she barely remembered. In the dusty heart of the Wild West, where legends were born and promises were as sacred as the land itself, lived a cowboy named Arthur. He wasn't the kind you'd read about in dime novels. His face was a roadmap of hard miles and quiet sorrows. His words were few, but his heart was as vast as the prairie sky. One day, a dusty carriage rattled into town, carrying a young woman named Clara. Her eyes, though shadowed with grief, held a flicker of unyielding resolve. She had come to fulfill her late father's final wish, to rebuild their family ranch, which had fallen into ruin after years of neglect and misfortune. It was a promise she intended to keep, no matter the cost. The townsfolk saw a fool's errand. The ranch was a ghost, its fences broken, its well dry, its fields choked with weeds. They offered their pity, but not their help. Clara, however, was undeterred. She rolled up her sleeves and set to work, her small frame a stark contrast to the monumental task ahead. Arthur watched from a distance. He'd known Clara's father, a good man who had once shown him kindness when no one else would. He saw that same stubborn goodness in Clara, and a silent promise formed in his own heart. He wouldn't let her fail. Under the cloak of night, a mysterious helper began to visit the ranch. One morning, Clara awoke to find a section of her fence miraculously repaired. The next, the stubborn, rusted pump at the well sputtered back to life, gushing clear, cool water. Sacks of seed appeared on her porch, and a stray calf, lost from a distant herd, found its way into her newly mended corral. Clara was bewildered. She'd ask around town, but everyone just shrugged. They called it the ghost of the prairie, a guardian angel watching over her. She'd leave out a slice of pie or a fresh jug of water each night, a small token for her unseen benefactor. Arthur would find them in the morning, a rare, soft smile touching his weathered face as he took the offerings before disappearing back into the dawn. He taught her without ever speaking a word. He'd leave a coil of rope tied in a specific knot she needed to learn, or position a plow in the field just so, showing her the most efficient way to turn the soil. Through his silent tutelage, Clara learned the rhythm of the land. She became tougher, wiser, a true daughter of the West. Months turned into a year. The ranch was no longer a ruin, but a thriving homestead. Green shoots pushed through the dark earth. The fences stood strong, and the sound of livestock filled the air. Clara had done it. She had honored her father's memory. One evening, as the sun bled crimson and gold across the horizon, a well-dressed man rode up to the ranch. He was a land surveyor from the east, captivated by the beauty of the rejuvenated land and the spirit of the woman who had brought it back to life. He saw a future in the west, and he saw it with Clara. Arthur watched them from his usual spot on the ridge. He saw the way the man looked at Clara, with respect and admiration. He saw the blush on Clara's cheeks, a happiness that went beyond mere survival. He knew his part in her story was coming to an end. This man could offer her a world Arthur never could, a world of comfort, of stability, of a life beyond the constant struggle. That night, for the first time, the mysterious helper did not visit the ranch. Clara felt a strange pang of loss. A silent thank you caught in her throat for the ghost who had guided her. The next morning, as Clara prepared to leave with the surveyor to start a new chapter, her gaze fell upon a small, hand-carved wooden horse left on her porch post. It was rough and simple, but crafted with an undeniable care. In that moment, she understood. Her guardian angel wasn't a ghost. He was a man, a quiet, lonely cowboy who had asked for nothing in return. From the distant ridge, Arthur watched the carriage carry Clara away toward a brighter future. A single tear traced a path through the dust on his cheek. He had kept his promise to his old friend, and in doing so, he had to let her go. He turned his horse and rode off, a solitary figure once more, melting back into the vast, silent landscape that held his secrets. His love was a silent one, a selfless gift, as enduring and as wild as the West itself. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like and subscribe for more tales from the frontier.